Thank you everyone for coming. And I know there was bad traffic, so everyone, thanks for braving that. Um, my name's for the people who haven't been here before, which I think there are a couple of people. I'm Ben. I'm with Rising Arts Foundation, and we, along with the Honcho crew, are putting on Fourth Rivers, the 6-week program here in Pittsburgh. Some creative incubation sessions, as well as these music industry informational sessions. So thank you all for coming. First, we are going to thank the sponsors, Citizens Bank, the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust, the Mac Miller Fund, Resident Advisor, Ableton, and the Paul R. Judy Grant. So thank you all. Pittsburgh Cultural Trust also offered this space, so appreciate that. So before we jump in, I want to introduce the panelists so they can introduce themselves.
Hey, I'm J. Edward Keyes, or Joe. I chose that pen name when I was in my 20s, and now I am stuck with it. So you can just call me Joe. I run Bandcamp Daily. That's Bandcamp's editorial arm, where we do stories on artists all around the world who are using Bandcamp to connect with fans. Have a special focus on doing scene reports about emerging scenes, not just in the US, but all over everywhere. Next year will be our 10th year of publishing. We just launched a Substack. We have radio shows, and we do video content on Instagram, all of it dedicated to lifting up rising artists. I've been working in the music industry for 20 years, mostly on the digital music side. Started out in music journalism back when it was still in print. So yeah, I'm super excited to be here.
Hey everybody, I'm Ashraf, or I just go by Ash for short. I work on the music partnerships team at YouTube. Have been there for 10 years in January. I was, for the first half of that time, working on our artist partnerships team, so working with artists and managers directly. Second half of the time, which is my current role, I work with large independent distributors. So that's a mix of folks like Downtown, who have a lot of like sort of distributed labels, and also self-releasing distributors like TuneCore and DistroKid. And so my role is basically being sort of the point of contact for whether it was artists or labels, and essentially helping them strategize around new releases. In cases where I'm working with these sort of like large distributors, sometimes I'm working directly with one of their distributed labels on a release. And with the self-releasing folks, it's sort of them coming to us with things that they, are thinking are interesting, but also sometimes me finding something that is distributed to DistroKid and trying to help out artists out that way. So it's a mix of like kind of hands-on strategy advice, looking out for marketing opportunities for artists or funding opportunities for artists that fall within sort of my world. I also am the global lead for a program we run called Foundry, which is a global artist development grant program, specifically for independent artists. That's been running for close to 10 years now. And we're back. Last year, we were just in the US. Now we're back to covering artists all over the world. And I've been, my background is sort of a mix of music and then sort of working in tech. So I was sort of deep in the music blogging world when that was really popular. I have done community radio for many years, DJ and organize events as well. I think that gives you a good sense.
And how do artists apply to Foundry?
We have, we actually just made our last selection for the year, but we have, you can kind of look out on our YouTube blog. Probably sometime in February or March, you'll find something, and there's an application form for the program. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone look out for that. It's a really good program and it offers like pretty holistic support. So that's something to note for everyone out there. And Joe, do you work with artists directly, or how does
Yeah, absolutely. We have artists who will email into the editorial department all the time. We have a form online where we can have artists, if you're not signed and you have music on Bandcamp and you want to get it to the editorial department, we make it super easy to do that. I'm also happy to give out my email address to anyone afterwards if they want to do that. I'm always constantly amazed at people who sort of track us down and cold email us. We open every single one of those emails and listen to the music and try to find spaces for it on the site. Kind of consider that our responsibility. So we do work directly with them. And then we also work directly with indie labels like Matador, Ghostly, Alien Tape, you know, you name it. They know how to get to us and they'll send us all their upcoming priorities. We'll check them all out. And we'll try to find spaces for them on the site. We're fortunate because we have so many outlets, the written, the video, the new and notable section on the homepage, which is just kind of a quick spotlight and actually does really well in terms of getting people followers and sales. So, you know, we do try really hard to get stuff in front of people in those ways. But yeah, we are emailing and talking to artists directly. I found some of my favorite artists that way.
And then also quickly, Ash, what's the difference between YouTube and YouTube Music? Because everything we use YouTube for is music. So
Yeah, it's actually a really good question that I feel like a lot of people maybe don't fully understand. So YouTube Music is basically like a separate app that's specifically for streaming audio. You can also obviously watch video through it, but it's like if you want a competitive product to other streaming platforms that's specifically just for music, you can use YouTube Music. But really the actions that you can take are all on YouTube main, and they will then be reflected within your profile on YouTube Music. So as an artist, you don't necessarily need to worry about your YouTube Music profile, except that when you're distributing, maybe if you're self-releasing, distributing through a DistroKid or something like that, just like make sure that you're also distributing your music to YouTube Music, because one, that makes sure that you can collect on revenue from it, but two, that also means that if somebody else is uploading a video with your song in it or something like that, that you can collect revenue from it as well. So as far as what we work on with artists, it's really their strategy on the main YouTube platform. And then the YouTube Music side is just kind of follows naturally, because actions you're taking on your YouTube channel will still be reflected in YouTube Music. So if you're uploading a music video, anything like that, something that is super important, I would say, is just making sure that you get an official artist channel, because that will make sure that you don't have, there's these, basically when you deliver music through a distributor, it creates a topic channel for you. And that is where your delivered tracks live. And unless you have an official artist channel, that'll kind of be a separate channel from your main channel. So the official artist channel will merge those two things so that like you have a single profile where when you upload a video shows, but also when you deliver music, you'll have like albums and things like that that people can dig into, whether that's on YouTube or YouTube Music.
Cool. So in this like era that we're in of you know, platforms and streaming, what like a lot of we collect a lot of questions from grantees beforehand, and some of the questions that come up are like, I don't really know what I need to know. So when you're talking to artists, what do you find is either a bit of lacking information, or what should they be asking themselves or the platforms?
For YouTube specifically, I think the biggest challenge with YouTube is that it's so many things. It's a social platform where you can interact with people. It's a streaming service. It's a video platform. And so I think it can feel a little overwhelming. I think my sort of advice in kind of in a few parts. One is that like you should really see your channel as like, you can call it a portfolio or a storefront, something of that nature, where you are not only publishing things yourself, but also if you are doing maybe a DJ set on a different platform, or you have features and collaborations, like you should kind of organize your page in such a way that it all lives there. And it should be like the type of thing where somebody wants to see your work. Like I think the cool thing about YouTube is people can get sort of this holistic view of you, both visually and musically. So I think seeing your channel as this place where you are accumulating and presenting your work in an organized way as like kind of first and foremost. Secondarily, I think being aware of all the different features that exist on YouTube and figuring out which ones make sense for you to be engaging with or not. You know, I think we always preach what we call a multi-format strategy on YouTube. That means engaging with both longer form videos and shorter form videos. And the way that we kind of see the ecosystem is that the shorter form videos help drive discovery and the longer form videos help drive fandom. So your sort of short content that you're putting out, which could just be cut downs from your videos, could be, it depends on what kind of content you like to make. And if you don't like making content, then maybe it's just pulling from your existing work and making sort of cut downs so that there's a better chance that people will find it. And then once they find it, you want them to kind of be pulled into your channel to explore who you are as an artist in in its entirety. And that's where sort of the long form piece comes in. So I would see sort of the short form side of the platform is that's how you're going to find new fans, because the distribution of that is really wide in terms of the way people consume that content. And then the longer form is for your existing like subscribers or fans, and for somebody who's just found you to be able to dig in a little bit deeper.
And with Bandcamp, it's a somewhat similar thing. We encourage people to kind of consider their Bandcamp page as their personal store, and also to think about the different ways that they can make the page more present, to get in front of people really naturally and organically. So I'll give you a few of those. On the bottom of the Bandcamp page, you'll probably notice that there's an option to tag your music. One of the things that we've noticed is people like to get sort of funny and clever with them. So they'll put out like a technical death metal record and tag it children's. Don't do that. Please tag it technical death metal, because what's going to happen is those tags is what's going to get sucked up into our Discover page. And if you're tagging your stuff with really niche, obscure things, it's not going to get pulled up into bandcamp.com/discover, which is that's the destination page where a lot of people go to discover music. It's where you can sort by genre, you can sort by location, you can sort by, and you can sort by subgenre as well. So make sure your tags are super clear and actually reflect the kind of music that you're putting out. So that's the first thing that I would say. The second thing that I would say is, look, you're coming in here cold and you're one album page amongst a ton of other album pages. One of the things that we always recommend is, and it doesn't have to be a full-length album, maybe it can just be a single. Think about something that you can put out there that you can price as name your price. Here's why. People are going to come across it through the Discover page or through sort of naturally surfing through Bandcamp. We've discovered name your price is super attractive to people. Not only that, people pay as much as up to 50% of kind of what the asking price is. So people are going to be generous with the name your price, especially if it's a single. But here's the other real secret sauce or reason why, and this is why I talked about the tags first. If you're tagged technical death metal and you put name your price on it, and a bunch of those, I'm choosing metal because they're a very generous crowd, see this name your price and they're like, oh, I'll give this a shot. I'll give this $5, $10. More and more people do it, the higher you are going to rise on the Discover page for technical death metal. So if other people go to bandcamp.com/discover and choose metal or technical death metal, because you've made it name your price and because a bunch of people have checked it out, they're going to scroll through and see, oh, who's this band? I've never listened to them before. I should check them out. So that's a kind of way to use the system while still getting paid directly by people who are checking it out to rise higher up in the ranks. Another thing that I would say to do is we have two different Bandcamp apps, which is a little bit confusing, I'll admit. We have Bandcamp for fans, and then we have one that's just Bandcamp for artists. Once you start amassing a little bit of an audience base, you can do this on desktop too. You can message those folks directly, and we always encourage people to just send a friendly message to let them know you see them. One of the things about Bandcamp is it's a small ecosystem and community, and it's really all about that personal connection. So just sending out a message to your fans is a super nice way to do it. Even if, to kind of bridge the two worlds, send a message to your fans and be like, hey, my video for my new song is debuting on YouTube. Here's an unlisted link to all my Bandcamp fans to the video where you can go over to YouTube and watch it early. And that's like a good way to pay those folks back. I always recommend too, if you're touring, you say, hey, I'm coming through Pittsburgh. If you live in Pittsburgh, I'm going to do a meet and greet at this location 20 minutes before. That's also kind of when you get to that level. Think about interesting and creative merch. One of the most fun things I ever saw, and this is going back years ago, so I can't remember the name of the band, but their lead singer was a tattoo artist. And so she did for a week, had a merch item that was, she would design a flash tattoo for you for $25, and she would send it to you as a PDF, and you could take it to whatever local artist and do a version of that flash tattoo. And you could say, oh yeah, this was initially designed by this singer from this band. So creative merch is another way to do it, but it all starts with that slow build. Tag, think about something you can sell or, for name your price to get up in the rankings. And then honestly, thirdly is email us and we'll figure out a place to put you on the homepage. So
Cool. Yeah. And that segues into my next question was that recently Leor Cohen announced that YouTube has just paid out $8 billion to the music industry in the last year or something like that. I think that a lot of people think of Bandcamp when they want to go support, their favorite artist financially, whatever. Ash, like, how do you sort of see YouTube as a way of allowing like fans to put money in artists' pockets?
Yeah, there's kind of a few layers to it, right? So, depending on the size of your channel, like you may or may not qualify for the YouTube Partner Program, which is basically how you can monetize videos you're uploading to your channel directly. So once you get to that point, and once you are part of the YouTube Partner Program, you'll then be making money both off of ads and from people who are sort of premium subscribers who are watching your content. In addition to that, once you're in the YouTube Partner Program, there are additional features that you can enable. So there's a memberships feature where people can pay a monthly membership for your channel, and you can give them exclusive pieces of content, exclusive merch drops, things of that nature. So that's like one way. And then if you live stream at all, there's also features called Super Chat and Super Stickers, where while you're live streaming, fans can contribute money to you directly. If you're not part of the YouTube Partner Program, in terms of monetizing directly on YouTube, the best option is to work with a music distributor. So that's a TuneCore, DistroKid, those types of companies, because they will deliver your music to YouTube, to those like topic channels I was talking about earlier, and they'll be able to monetize that and pay you out for any listening to music, for any usage of your music on the platform. But I think there's like a whole other layer beyond sort of that direct monetization piece that's worth thinking about. So we have an integration with Bands in Town for ticketing. So if you're on the road, make sure that that's connected to your channel. Another reason why you should have an official artist channel is you get access to those integrations. We also have a merch integrations with Shopify. So there's those integrations, but then even beyond that, there are ways from a video to link out to different things like Bandcamp. So making sure that when you're uploading videos, you're putting either info cards or end screens on your video that either link to, like, it could be your official website, it could be a store, like an external store where people can buy your music. So you can also just leverage the tools available to you to link out to other methods of monetization as well. So there's the direct monetization piece, and there's also leveraging the viewership and fandom that you might be building on YouTube to then feed into sort of direct purchases and things like that.
And is there a place that they can go to like see all these, like to like get a list of all these features and like kind of how?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best place would be our help center. So if you go to the YouTube Help Center and you search YouTube Partner Program, you'll find details on how you qualify for the program, but you'll also find details on all the different ways you can monetize videos on YouTube and your content on YouTube. We also created a site called YouTube for Artists. That's just at artists.youtube, and I can share that with you as a leave behind. And that has more kind of best practices on releasing music on YouTube in general. So that's a little bit more broad in terms of, what's a good short strategy? What should I be doing before my release? What should I be doing after my release? So those are kind of two places we can look for those types of resources.
Cool. And I feel like everyone's kind of used to it at this point, all these platforms and everything changing all the time, right? Bandcamp has been bought and sold twice in the last 2 years. New features come up all the time with YouTube. Like, how, as an artist who's trying to balance so many different things online and IRL, like, what kind of advice do you give for someone to be able to stay afloat with all these things?
it's tricky. I mean, one of the things with everything that's happened at Bandcamp in the last 2 years, we're very fortunate in that they haven't touched us at all or asked us to do anything that would compromise what Bandcamp is. They're very content to just let Bandcamp be Bandcamp. And we've been with the current owners for 2 years. And especially when it comes to editorial, I had a one-on-one with my boss on Friday, and it was about 15 minutes. And he was like, you guys seem to know what you're doing, so I'm just going to let you continue to do it and not get involved. So, we're very grateful that that's been the situation in both places. And I don't think we're going anywhere for a while based on everything that I've heard. So it's been pretty non-interventionist. But I mean, look, it's it's disorienting. And that's why I do think it's a good idea to kind of diversify the places that fans can get your music and choose the one that you want to point them towards. And I mean, another thing that I'll say, so my wife works in the independent music industry too. She works for Secretly Distribution. And, we talk about all the time, we're older, I'm 50. And, the 90s were challenging too, with independent labels getting snapped up by major labels and people trying to chase the next Seattle. The music industry is a scary, disorienting place. And this is going to sound really wishy-washy, but, hold fast to the belief in your music, the belief in your art, navigating these changes. I wish I had a crystal ball and could tell you what's coming down the line other than AI, which I prefer not to think about. But it's, diversify and be available on as many platforms as possible, and also kind of stay true to who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I can piggyback on that and then also speak to some sort of more YouTube specific things. But yeah, I think you never know where your music might take off. So that might be on a social media platform, that might be on YouTube, that might be on Bandcamp. So I think it is important to have sort of presence across the board. And then once you are seeing traction on one platform, you can try to kind of direct it to whatever your preferred platforms are. So if if that is YouTube, like, or if that's Spotify, or if that's Bandcamp, like, you can kind of leverage wherever you find the audience, which is why it is good to spread yourself across, but also being mindful of that's additional time and something that takes you away from actually making music, which is, what probably you love doing the most. For YouTube specifically, I think it's a bit of a matter of being consistent and persistent, meaning, it is important to be kind of regularly uploading some kind of content there. And that's sort of, I think, actually where shorts can be a little bit helpful, is like if you have a 5-minute music video, or if you have a DJ set, like you can kind of repurpose that content or content you're creating across other socials, and kind of bring it there. And so that allows you to kind of create some consistency without necessarily having to do additional work of like thinking up a new content idea every time you're putting something up. And sort of you can kind of see if you start to get traction on any one concept or something like that, and then you can kind of iterate from there. But I think you also simultaneously, and this is like the hard part, can't be discouraged if like not everything you upload performs well every time, because I think that's sort of what the trap that a lot of people fall into is like they try something once, they feel like, oh, it didn't work, and then they just kind of like move on. And so I think it's really important to, again, be persistent as well as consistent in terms of thinking of like, how can I, give myself an opportunity for something to happen around my music. And the only way to do that is by kind of giving yourself multiple shots, which is where the being persistent comes in. And like the last thing I'll say is like, I would never recommend putting content out there that you don't enjoy making, and or that you don't feel passionate about making, because I think one, people can kind of tell, but two, that's not sustainable. So like ultimately, like, you need to find kind of what the thing is that you like making that is sort of showing that ties into you as a creative and a musician and an artist, that can be sustainable because you enjoy doing it. And then once you see things that are working, you can then iterate on them. So those would be sort of my initial thoughts.
Actually, as you were talking, I thought of something that I think is true of both platforms that sort of came up. The people who are going to be with you through all of these changes in the industry are your fans and your community, and staying in touch with them and staying in contact with them, whether it's through the Bandcamp artist app, sending out a little message and saying, hey, thank you so much for following me, or through YouTube, communicating with them out that way. The industry may change, but people who feel something when they listen to your music are going to stay with you and follow you. And so to that same point of putting out a lot of different things, shoot them a message, stay in touch, let them know you see them and you appreciate them, because they're going to be the ones who are going to be at your backs through the kind of changing waves.
I think just last thing to, based on what you're saying, is like, I think that we're in a world right now where there's kind of a lot of different ways to rack up streams or numbers, and not all of those ways translate back into invested fans who are going to buy tickets to your shows, things like that. So like, I think it's like, to your point, like showing your appreciation, like acknowledging where you have fans and finding ways to engage with them, that is like what helps convert somebody from being like, oh, I just came across this one song. And like, you want people to discover you as an artist. You don't want them just to discover like a single song. And that's where I think both platforms are really great, because it allows you to contextualize your music. And that's really, that context is what makes fans. And that's something that our current music ecosystem struggles with, I think, is that some artists will have one song that goes crazy, but nobody knows who the artist is. Nobody necessarily thinks to kind of follow up with them, because maybe they found it out of that context. So it's kind of creating that context to facilitate sort of fandom.
Yeah, I mean, I think that even though there are all these like opportunities for different ways to engage with fans on any platform, I think one thing that is tough for artists right now is that like you're kind of pulled in all these different directions of and you know, also just inherently, like as a musician, maybe visual assets aren't don't come like that naturally to you. And not to mention they can be expensive to produce, or they're time consuming or whatever. Like how should you prioritize like like where you put your time and effort with like all these different platforms, all of which have their different aspect ratios and types of video lengths and ways of engaging. How do you feel about like all this huge menu of ways to engage?
Yeah, I mean, I think more than anything, the majority of your time should be put into making the music itself, because the platforms like Bandcamp and YouTube exist to surface that. So, if you're stretched for time and thinking about, what do I want to put the most focus on? Put the most focus on writing the best song that you can, and you're going to be able to adapt that to a bunch of different models. As far as, creating art and assets and things like that, you definitely need those things. I would probably put those next on the list. Creating an album cover that pops. Merch, you could probably put a little bit lower down on the list, in my opinion, especially, seeing how it is on Bandcamp, and only in the instance of if you're stretched for time, which is kind of what you asked for. I would just focus on great songs, great albums, and then, the art packaging to create that. And there's a bunch of resources. Even if you don't know someone who can create an album cover for you, there's resources, be it Reddit, or, you can ask for artists who are just trying to get a break at the first time, get them a gig to create the art for your single or for your album or whatever. So that would be my answer for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of a tough question to answer, because it's so dependent on you as a creative and a person, in terms of, to your point, like some artists like love being on camera, they love talking about their music, they love maybe they're like, for singer-songwriters, maybe they're just sitting at a guitar and playing music, and that's like a really easy thing you can do. Some people are actually sort of like, creative in the sense that they like to do things that are strange and eccentric around their music visually. Some people are, if you're a producer or a DJ, maybe that's like the thing that you highlight visually. So I huge +1 to your point, that like start with the music and work outwards from there, but also think about like, what is your skill set as an artist, and how can you showcase that through what you're doing visually. Like I would always start from the music point and move out incrementally from there. So it's like, if you're a producer, then one step out from being a producer visually is showing people your process of producing, or doing creative things with production that aren't necessarily your original music, but things that you can showcase visually. Or if you're a DJ, or if you're a songwriter, like there are ways to visually kind of take advantage of your talent in that way. And I would start there before moving out to like lifestyle content, or anything like that sort of like maybe feels to some cheesy, and to others feels like a natural thing to do. So like, if you're not sure what to do, just lean on your talent and how you can showcase that. Or if you're, a multidisciplinary type of artist, then lean into that and like make cool, weird visuals for your music, So like it depends on what your skill set is, and what your personal relationship is with creating that visual content.
And I think you brought up AI or one of you, yeah, you brought up AI. Like, some of the questions that came in were about that, like how, as we're seeing all the AI content start to flood everything, um, these platforms are going to be subject to that, right? Like, and a lot of these artists, an audience or whoever's watching, they'll be using samples, they'll be doing interpolations of different work. Is there a concern that AI is maybe not just like from the platform side, however you guys are using it, maybe it's not just going to be taking down like the slop, but it might kind of be like taking down some artist stuff, or how like, should they be concerned about this? Or
I know that we have pretty advanced tools for identifying content that's using AI. We also require disclaimers for people that are uploading that kind of content. I don't know enough about the content identification technology and where it's going to go and like what policies will be put in place as we move forward for people that are actually using AI in interesting and creative ways. But I would also say that as a company and as a platform and as a broader company that is actually building a lot of AI technology, I don't think there is like a viewpoint necessarily that all AI content would be taken down or all AI content could not be monetized. It's just kind of a matter of, one, like how legislation develops over the next few years, and two, really like what people are doing with the technology, and like think there's going to be some aspect of reacting to what's being created in terms of like how things become delineated over time. Like I don't know if eventually, I know in certain areas people are kind of saying AI versus non-AI content. But I think we're moving towards a world where, yes, AI, people may have used AI for an aspect of what they're doing, but it is still sort of from their creative vision. And we've seen people make entire music videos using VO, which is our like video generation tool. But like those videos actually take a ton of time to create, and it's still the same creative teams that work on music videos are working with these tools and products. So to that point, like I think there's a lot to be fleshed out in terms of how the next few years look, what laws look like, what kind of content gets created, how people are using it. So is there, I think there's, I guess to answer the question, like there might be reason to be worried about that, but I couldn't quite speculate to if that's true or not. So
My answer is pretty much the same. It's no man's land right now, kind of, and we're still figuring it out. I mean, there's definitely, I can think off the top of my head, a couple of artists there's a metal person on Bandcamp. And I think that a lot of the stuff is AI generated. They mark it as such. I mean, the other thing with us is that one of the charms of Bandcamp is that we're a scrappy team. And so finding a lot of the stuff and flagging it is not always easy. So it's basically, I don't want to just repeat what you said, but it's basically the same answer.
And I think like what's interesting about that question, which is, and this isn't necessarily the question I would have expected, is like I think people are asking if they're using AI as an artist in their music, like, but it's not the entirety of their music, or do they have to worry about that? And that, it's tough to give that answer given where we are now. But yeah.
do you see it as like, do you find that it's making music generated by like 100% humans like harder to discover? Like, are the algorithms kind of getting flooded?
I don't think we're there yet. I would also say like we're in terms of like saturation, we're already there, right? Even if you're talking about AI music or not, like the sheer amount of music being delivered to either of our platforms is sort of impossible to even wrap your head around, honestly. So I think that there is a chance that it increases that saturation further, for sure. Yes, but we also are already at a saturation point. So
we're not seeing on Bandcamp anything on the Discover page that is AI music yet for any of the sub platforms. I think a lot of that's got to do with the community that comes to Bandcamp too. Is like they know what they're looking for and they know that they want to support that, for lack of a better phrase, sort of human music makers. And so we haven't seen that yet. It definitely exists on the platform, but it's not charting anywhere.
And so much of, I think, what draws people to artists on YouTube and where the discovery point happens is the music video. And the music videos oftentimes sort of showing the artists themselves and stuff. So I think there is sort of like a generally more personal approach, like because we're not like just a purely algorithmic audio platform. I think that's where the real risk is with the AI music, when people are listening in a more lean back kind of environment. I think and we're already kind of starting to see that on some of the streaming, like just purely audio streaming platforms, where there does feel like there's that risk of it taking from the pot of money that should also be going to human beings, right? And not like sort of software developers, I guess.
The idea that we're at that saturation point, I think, is like pretty overwhelming to a lot of people. Like how are you seeing it on like the YouTube end? Like, do you see that? I mean, I feel like in the last several years, the artists who have like really blown up have like just blown up, have conquered the world in like 8 months, and the Fred Agains and the, whoever Chaperones, whatever. Do you see that as a product of like the saturation point where an artist that does kind of break through the noise just skyrockets, or what do you see the result of the saturation point?
Yeah, I mean, I actually do think that two things are related. I think that I think that it's sort of this point where when you're being hit with so much information constantly, and one thing sort of raises its hand and then finds its way into everybody's feeds all the time, it's hard for that thing not to become the kind of end all be all goal for what you want from your career. I think the reality though is like, I would actually challenge people to think smaller. You're like, first of all, like chances are you're not going to be Fred again, but like there's also ways to build sustainable careers, and sort of like I would start building fan by fan. And I actually would like, in addition to obviously doing everything you're doing online, I would also put a focus on like the IRL side of things too, because that is actually like a real way to build fans, like getting involved in your local music scene, community radio, like things like that, because that actually gives you that initial groundswell that might help you then reach the second like audience group. So it's like your first audience group can be your homies, your second audience group can be your scene, and then like if enough swell happens within your scene that you are starting to get a couple thousand views on your videos, then it might start getting recommended for other people in other places. So like I would think I would actually say like build it brick by brick. If you become Fred again, that's great. But that's sort of I think it creates an unrealistic expectation, and it also makes us feel bad about ourselves. I think, as people, when if you're an artist and you see this other artist that's just everywhere and you can't escape them, and you're like, I want, like, why is that not me? So like trying to focus on what you can do, and sort of think of it incrementally. Like incremental growth is good, and actually if you build that way, that actually sets you up for more of a long-term career, like in reality, right? Because there are a lot of people who have the Fred again moment, and then 6 months from now you never hear from them again, right? So that's actually what you want to partially avoid too.
To that point, yeah, there's that old industry colloquialism that's like, be nice to the people that you meet on the way up, because you're going to meet them again on the way down. And it's the same if you have that groundswell of fans. I look at a lot of the bands from the 90s who had one hit, but because it was a lot more organic, those bands are still out there touring, and they're not like charting, but they're making enough to make a sustainable living. And one of the other points we did on Bandcamp Daily, a tour diary with this band called Dummy, who I really, really like. And the whole gist of that piece was it was written in the wake of a lot of other independent bands who had gotten the flashpoint of the moment, and then we're out there and we're discovering the same thing. Like, wait, this isn't just buckets of money like I thought it was going to be. Whereas by contrast, this band Dummy did exactly that, built it slowly but surely, and they're out there on the road. Dummy's not a household name, but they can make a living doing money because they've got doing music, because they've got this audience that they've built over time. The other thing that I'll mention too, and I know you just mentioned this name as like happenstance, but Chaperon, who I love her music, but if you look into her story, it's like a long ass time before she blew up. You just don't hear about it that much. Like, she put this same record out with another label like 6 or 7 years ago, and it went nowhere. And so even somebody like that, who is like exploding all over the place, she invested like 7 or 8 years before it got to that point, and it just kind of feels like an overnight success. And that's why I do think she's going to be one of the ones. Lana Del Rey, same thing. She was making music as Lizzie Grant before any of this happened. So keep that in mind too, that a lot of these folks, you just don't hear about it, but for years building up to it, they've been in the trenches.
I think that's actually a really, really important point to highlight, because I think the artists that do have that viral moment and then disappear, it's because they actually maybe haven't had the chance to put in that kind of work. And so you can kind of see, it is a hard perspective to actually probably take into your day-to-day life, but like, you should see the fact that you're putting in this work and time as something that you're building towards. So if and when that moment arrives, you're fully ready for it. Because I think that's actually the downside to virality, is that a lot of times people are hit with all of this opportunity and they're just like not there yet. That's also why you see acts that are like not ready to tour yet, kind of being forced onto the road. Like there's all of that. So again, like put in the work and time and love what you do, and like that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, seems like what you're saying is that like a lot of artists just feel like they have to prioritize, these like building towards these moments, or priming their content for whatever they can to, or in whatever ways they can to pop off that way. But like that should just be one aspect of kind of their focus, and their focus should be building brick by brick, like you said. It's interesting, like it does kind of seem, with these like mega viral moments, it feels like in some ways we are back to a kind of a monoculture, but actually it, that sort of sits on top of, well-built scenes and well-built fan bases. It's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, and so many of these things, like they come out of those subcultures, right? Like you kind of see the swell of things that lead to them becoming what they are. So yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it.
And so I think each of you sort of touched upon this in a couple different ways, but kind of bringing fans from like, a casual listener into more of these, a brick in the, building that. I guess, Ash, you were saying that like, start with shorts and then kind of guide them back towards a holistic vision of your career on the channel. And then I think, Joe, with you, it's kind of algorithmically and with some of the curated discovery features, and then kind of bringing them into your page. Is there like, how does live play into this? Like how does that kind of fit into that sort of funnel, fit into a broader like career plan?
Is this live streaming or
Streaming,
shows?
touring, whatever? Right? Like how how does an artist take like a focus on one platform and kind of build it into building a fan base?
Yeah, I mean, we see that all the time on Bandcamp. There's a band that I love called Charlie Bliss, and I can even use another example, but it was pre-Bandcamp. The National is kind of the same thing. But Charlie Bliss, when they first started out in New York, they played everywhere just in New York City. I mean, I saw that band with 3 other people in the room, and they just kept chipping away at it, and they would use their Bandcamp to send messages to fans and just keep saying, hey, we're going to be here. We're going to be here when we play in this venue. They did a thing where, the first 10 people show up if you get this message, and we'll sign our new 7-inch or something for you. What ends up happening is they happen to have an amazing live show. So to your point about bands being shoved out on the road before you're ready, don't do that. Practice. And so they just started building word of mouth within New York that way. And then when they were ready to leave New York, they already had some buzz with people who would talk to people in other cities. Same thing, send a Bandcamp message. We're going to be here. We're going to be doing this. And so it's a lot of the same kind of brick by brick. But early on, as much as it sucks, and just to be blunt about it, the early couple shows you play, you're probably not going to make much money. But don't ever play a show for exposure. It's one of the big things that people like to do, where it's like, well, we can't pay you, but it's good exposure. I don't know. In my experience, it's never been good exposure. Always play shows to get paid. You're working. And then, just keep taking those gigs. You'll take a good local opener for a larger band that's in town, it's going to take a long time, but that's build that presence. And I do think live goes a long way. Here's another example of huge Bandcamp success. This band is wild. In fact, they just took their music off Spotify, and you can get on Bandcamp. It's King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard. I saw that band for the first time opening for Guided by Voices in like 2005. And it was the same kind of thing where they're just road dogs and they just kept touring. And now, and they put out, again, in talking about, putting out shorts and putting out a steady stream of content. For them, it's albums. They put out album after album after album on Bandcamp. And when you put out an album on Bandcamp, everybody who follows you and has bought your previous albums gets an email and says there's a new King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard album. So it's the same thing. They built their entire career on the back of just playing and playing and playing. And now they can just put out album after album after album and the fans are there for it. So that's how I'm not sure if that answers the question, but that's kind of how I see the live thing fitting into it.
I mean, it's interesting. Like, I think that there is this common feeling that like in the 2025 music industry landscape, like the emphasis should be on these platforms. But actually what people from the platforms are saying is actually what works is just doing what artists have always done.
It is. I talked a lot. Go ahead.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, I think artists should continue doing the things that artists have always done, right? And I also think that like, I think the two things are sort of like separate parallel things that then feed off of each other. You know what I mean? So the digital stuff might lead some people to the physical stuff. The physical stuff might lead some people to the digital stuff, which is why having that sort of on either platform, having that sort of portfolio available. So somebody that went to a show and you were opening up is like, oh, like that was, if it's a DJ, like that was a really cool set. Let me go check out their channel. And like, oh, they have a setup here I can watch. And now like, if they ever play another show, I'm going to be interested in checking it out. Right. So like the two things interact. Yeah. So I think it's like, I actually think like that's maybe part of the problem for a lot of artists is that they focus so much on the digital because they feel like that's the only thing that matters. But it's like, that's not how you develop as an artist that can do all the things that artists are meant to do. And ultimately the things that will help you the most financially involve you being on the road, playing shows and doing the things that a traditional, whatever, pre-internet artist would have to do, which makes it a difficult time for artists because it's just a whole new thing that you need to do, but it's also opportunity. So.
And there's this, a lot of the, you maybe touched on this earlier, but like with, the normal kind of like traditional artist stuff to do, touring, releasing music, whatever, plus the sort of digital layer of added responsibility. A lot of that falls onto the artist's plate. They have limited time, limited resources. Is there anything that the platforms do to help an artist growth that takes some of the work off the artist?
Yes. Can you expand a little on artist growth so I'm answering?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Aside from like, you'd mentioned tagging, sort of some of the algorithmic stuff, but like, is there a way that like do the platforms feel any sort of sense of responsibility to kind of help nurture fandom for artists? Is there like kind of a built-in way that so instead of just saying, here artist, here's a tool for you to spend X amount of hours on and make a connection, how do the platforms look at strengthening that connection?
I can just speak quickly and brief to Editorial. I feel a massive sense of responsibility around that. And we do a column on Fridays called Essential Releases where the editors will select the albums that we think that you need to know that week. I will say we on Bandcamp really go out of our way not to cover artists that we think are going to be covered other places, just because we feel like we want to help those artists who aren't going to be getting covered somewhere else. So if I write up an artist for Essential Releases, for me, it's usually going to be a hip hop artist. I love hip hop. I am as invested that like, I have the Bandcamp All Seeing Eye. So there's this Lynn, Massachusetts rapper that I like called Nayusi Low. I put his record in essential releases. The entire weekend, I will be looking at his stats to see like, did we sell any records? How did he do? Like, how many followers did he get? What did he do? So, yeah, I feel a huge sense of responsibility. We have editorial meetings twice a week, and we got a big list of all of the albums that are coming out on any given street date. And a major factor on whether or not we're going to give someone album of the day or feature them somewhere is like, is Pitchfork going to pick this? And if the answer is yes, then we're probably not. So I can say that that's true for everyone on the team. And the other thing about that I want to say about Bandcamp, and especially touching on the different owners that we've had over the last few years, no money ever changes hands for coverage on Bandcamp, ever. Not for Bandcamp Daily, not for Bandcamp Radio, not for anything like that. There's never like, oh man, they're a big label. Can you just like throw them a bone, do them a favor? Nope. It's all stuff. If you see it on Bandcamp, it's because someone who works at Bandcamp really likes it and believes in it and connects with it. So I take the growth aspect super seriously, and I feel indebted to the artist on that front. Yeah.
Do you see when a record or a song or whatever is featured? Do you see long term? Like, do you see the people who discovered they stick around?
Yeah, because one of the other things that works to help with growth. So when we feature someone in essential releases, I can look at their dashboard the next day, and the line of plays and sales will be like this, and then they're in essential releases, it goes like this. Also true of, if you don't already know about this and you're cool with, we just launched a Substack, bandcamp.substack.com. Every Wednesday we do a cool band alert. We call it cool band alert because it's based on Sassy's cute band alert, but it's not just bands, it's artists of all different stripes. Saying Sassy is a 50-year-old man in this room, I really just dated myself, but it was a cool magazine in the 90s. So we call it that, but it's all different kinds of artists. If you're featured in the cool band alert, which we also go out of our way, whoosh, same thing. We see a spike in sales, we see a spike in plays, and we see a spike in follows as a result of featuring there. I got off track. What was your original question?
Does after that spike, do these people stick around, or is
right? So here's the good thing about that. When you get that spike, what you're also getting a spike in is people who are then following you on Bandcamp. Maybe they don't buy your record right away, but they listen to it and they're like, oh, I'm going to follow this person. Now that means that every time you send a message, which is what I talk about at the beginning, all these new followers you got as a result of this exposure are getting that message. Anytime you release something new, all of those new followers that you got as a result of this coverage are getting that message. And you're like, oh yeah, I saw them in Cool Band Alert. I should go check them out again, and getting a reminder. Also, if you get featured somewhere on Bandcamp, secret hot tip, we have a recommendations thing in the footer and a recommendations thing other places. If you get an editorial pick, your album is now in that mix. So, you don't necessarily peak and then stay all the way up here, but you've now got a huge base of followers that you built brick by brick, as we've been talking about, so that the next time, maybe you peak here with essential releases and go back down, and then you drop something else and everybody is re-engaged again. So it's just a great way to get folks paying attention.
We're going to head into question and answers or Q&A in 1 second, but Ash, I'm curious about, like, from a YouTube perspective, obviously Bandcamp has this emphasis on curation and editorial, which is disappearing from everywhere. I'm actually surprised that you guys pay attention to Pitchfork. That says something.
We keep an eye on everybody.
But since just with the scale of how much is on YouTube, is the YouTube sort of official position that, like, we kind of let the curator channel, the third party independent curator channels kind of handle that? Or how does you guys have official playlists?
Yeah. So it's a tricky question, and it's a push and pull, because, our product team really, and for good reason, like, believes that the search and discovery engine they built is very good, and they trust that it will take people to content they want to see. But on the music side, we do have editorial that is sort of a mix of human curation with some input based on signals they're getting in terms of video performance or watch time or repeat listens, things like that. So we do have dedicated playlists. They live on both YouTube and YouTube Music. So those are generally pitched by labels and distributors. So there is sort of a pitching tool on the back end that is used for that. which does make it tricky for artists who are self-releasing, which is sometimes where like some of my kind of work comes in, where we're trying to highlight artists that are coming out of those distributors. What else can I say? Oh, the curator channels. Yeah, so we do love that. I mean, I think that ecosystem is one of the things that makes the platform stand out the most, and is something that we're kind of figuring out how to lean further into. One feature that I'll just shout out because it's new for anyone that does work with the curator channel is there is actually the way to do like collab video posts on YouTube now. So if you were to do a mix for a radio station, or do play a show, or do a colors performance, or any of those types of things, you can now ask them to add you as a collaborator on the video. It doesn't change anything on the back end. It's still uploaded to the main person who uploaded it, but now your channel shows side by side with them. And if somebody subscribes to that channel, they can then also subscribe to yours. And also like will help just like with the visibility of your page in general, if say that, or even if it's another artist you're collaborating with, of course, if they have a bigger following, it can help drive people back to your.
Yeah, I saw some of those with the Deck Mantel videos.
Yeah, they've been doing that.
They're all.
Yeah.
Okay, so we should open up to some questions from the crowd. Maria's got the mic. Is it not working? All right, well, for now, we can just use this mic, but it might mean people have to come up here to ask questions.
And
There we
hey,
Okay.
I actually have a question to start off. Joe, what is it like as you're talking about how invested you are with like editorial and knowing how big like Bandcamp Daily and just like being on that for artists can be? How far in advance are you planning these things for artists to know when to send them to you? And what does it look like? How should artists also think differently about Bandcamp Friday specifically, or is that all still like kind of in the same ecosystem?
Great question. So for knowing things in advance, this is going to sound insane. And I think a lot of this has to do with the shrinking number of music publications out there. I've seen, and just since we started getting slammed more and more and more with pitches, as crazy as it sounds, for like features, we're booking those, believe it or not, like 3 months in advance of street date. And it's just because we're getting hit so early and so frequently. We do save them for, artists who the kind of artists I was talking about before, but for like long form features, it's like 3 months in advance. I'm going to tell you a secret with that. And then I'll answer the Bandcamp Friday question first, then I'll come back to this. Bandcamp Fridays, we love doing them. I'm going to be totally honest with you. Don't know if it's a good idea to release music on Bandcamp Friday. It's just an avalanche. Like it's I know that sounds really counterintuitive, and I'm not saying this because we take a fee every other day, I swear to God. It's just so easy to get lost in the noise of Bandcamp Friday. And when it started out, and it's still great and it's still a really great service for artists, but if you're timing something that's really special to you, it's going to be tricky, and you're probably not going to get beyond your immediate fan base. So if you're fine with that, then please, by all means, go ahead and do it. But it's been so much noise. I know we're being recorded saying this, but I'd say this to my coworkers too. I have a lot of mixed feelings about Bandcamp Friday because of that. I think it's amazing that we waive fees and give it to artists. That's not the part of it, but it's just become so huge that it gets tough to break through the noise. So, there's that. We do discuss, before Bandcamp Friday, who we're going to feature on that day. Now, fortunately, because it's a Friday, it's this when we run our essential releases column that I was talking about before. So we were like, all right, it's Bandcamp Friday. Let's put like even more thought into who are we going to put in this essential releases column, because that one does get read and purchased from a ton on Bandcamp Friday. So for features, yeah, it's like 3 months out. The other thing, but we keep album of the day really tight. We only book that 2 weeks in advance, and that's to give a window to folks who, especially folks who are just starting out. They're not thinking about like a 3-month plan or a 6-month plan. Like, I have this album ready, I want to drop it. And so a lot of times we'll just hear about things at the last minute. That allows us to only have like a 2-week buffer. So if you drop something that's a surprise and we hear about it, we can still run an album of the day like relatively soon afterwards. The other thing I'm going to tell you, which is a bit of a secret, everybody always, and I understand why people do this, folks always pitch for the feature. Like I have an I'm an artist and I'm starting out. I would love to just get an interview feature about me on Bandcamp Daily. That's actually not a good way to do it. And I'll tell you why. If you know the way the feature, if you've read a feature on Bandcamp Daily, a single artist feature or anything on Bandcamp Daily, you'll see that they have these little embedded players in it, right? Those embedded players don't just play music. Everyone who follows one of those bands in the player gets an email that says something like, hey, Bandcamp has just featured this artist who you follow on their page, which means if you're an artist that's just starting out and putting just your players in that standalone feature about you, only people who already know about you are going to get that email to come and read a feature about you. The traction you're going to get from the homepage is not going to be significant enough because, unfortunately, in the attention economy, when people look at the homepage and see a face and a name they don't know, they tend not to click through to it. It sucked. That's just what happens. Here is what you want. You want to be featured in a list with a bunch of other artists, like a list that would be like the emerging Pittsburgh punk rock scene, because someone might not know about you, but they might know about another band that we featured. And I'll tell you about a trick I did with this. They might know about another band who was featured. Actually, let me tell you about the trick so it'll flesh it out a little better. We did a scene on the reggaeton scene in Mexico. It was all up and coming artists. However, we had Bad Bunny through Bandcamp released a cassette. Now, Bad Bunny's from Puerto Rico, obviously. So I asked the writer, when you do this, can you please include some kind of paragraph about the reggaeton scene in Puerto Rico and then transition into Mexico elegantly in a way that makes sense? Here's why. So many people bought that Bad Bunny album that when I put that Bad Bunny embed in there, and then there were 12 unknown Mexican reggaeton, everybody who bought that Bad Bunny record got an email that said, Bandcamp just wrote a piece on reggaeton in Mexico. Wasn't about Bad Bunny, but they got that email. They all came to that list and saw all these other bands that they've never heard of who were making reggaeton and got exposed to them that way. That's why being featured in a list is actually better than a standalone feature. It's, rising tide lifts all boats. So I hope I explained that well. If not, find me afterwards.
I think we have a question up here.
So I have had a conversation with Jeff Gion of Amazon Music, and I'm curious. We've talked a lot about how to get visibility and how to progress a music career as an artist touring, but I'm actually more curious about the music journalism, A&R, music programming side of things, because I think that's a really legitimate way to have a music career and still make music and tour. But to be somebody who knows everybody, what are the practical steps to sort of work on that as an avenue to be someone like one of you in 10, 20 years?
Usually, because your tour is D-Day, you don't talk more about A&R.
Yeah. So, I think there's kind of two parts to it. Is that my mic? One I would say those are sort of distinct skills from making music, which I'm sure if you're a DJ, you kind of already are building. So I think things for me, things that helped me get this job was basically that I had experience kind of working in the tech side, but then all of the things I was doing outside of work were music and curation based. So I think just starting to do the things that set you up to have that perspective. So that is things like getting a radio show, creating your own platforms. I have a Substack that I use to share new music, doing things like that, making your own blog or whatever it is, so that you kind of build a a body of work that is in that lane, whatever that might be. So that could be playlist building, that could be DJ sets, that could be radio shows, that could be your live shows, that could be music supervision for your friends making films, like things like that. So kind of starting to build those skills in a bespoke way. And then sort of on the flip side, from a more career strategy standpoint, it's kind of just being on the lookout for roles at companies that interest you that might not necessarily be the exact role you're looking for, because it's sort of that opportunity to get your foot in the door and get to know people and get to, maybe you're in a more of an operational role, but you get to interface with people doing programming or partnerships or A&R if you're at a label, and you can kind of start to just connect with them as a fellow sort of curatorial mind and sort of show them that you really care about this. And like, that's where that first part comes into play, because you're like, oh yeah, like I have a radio show, or like you kind of show that you're actually invested in it in an organic way. And that both helps you hone those skills and also shows your commitment to those things, like the fact that you're doing these things on your own and taking that initiative. So that would be, I think that sort of like has been my path, basically, I would say. Yeah.
You brought up a good point too. I'm first doing a lot of these kind of local things, like having radio shows. I have a Bandcamp radio show on East Village Radio. I think like maybe 100 people listen to it because East Village Radio is not that huge. But here's the thing. If I ever wanted to transition into radio, or if anybody here wants to do that, if I see a job that I'm interested in, I now have this whole archive of radio shows that I can send as like my resume. So it's not so much about I'm doing this radio show because maybe I'll get discovered. It's more about that if I do see a job that I want, I now can show them like, this is what I do. And then, yeah, I was chuckling in my head, your second point about taking a job that's not exactly what you want. My first job in 2005 was at a company called eMusic, which was kind of like Bandcamp before there was Bandcamp. And it was an editorial job, and it was just entering HTML into editorial features all day. I wrote nothing. I made no assignments, but that was the start.
Yeah, like I had to work with YouTube creators, which is miserable, for the first like year and a half. And I was kind of, it was sort of, because I had been at, and sorry if anyone here is like a super serious YouTube creator, but like it's a different world and it's really intense. But what was interesting about that time is because YouTube creators are so deep in their YouTube channels, I had to learn so much depth that I would have not learned from only working with artists. And so that kind of fed into me being able to take that into working with artists. But at the time, the company was like in this totally different place where like, you know, our music team wasn't really fully formed yet. So I was kind of in this place where I would reach out to artists to try to help them out. And I wouldn't have that much to be able to offer in terms of like where our products were, in terms of what they could really do and steps they could take. So
that sort of helped, that sort of like led into the artist side and helped sort of build that expertise up on the actual platform side that I could then take to try to help the partners I was working with. And like similar to you, like I did a community radio show in San Francisco for 6 years, every single week, a 2-hour show that, yeah, probably like my parents listened to.
I don't even get that, so you're doing better than me.
And I have that archive to point to when I'm, you know, doing things like The Lot, or doing some double app shows in LA. Like it all kind of comes from the fact that I've done it before and have this sort of extended like library of things. And I also kind of just make mixes for fun and put them up on my Substack, like that kind of stuff. Like, so again, it's kind of like, you probably already love doing those things. So it's just like, yeah, just do them. And then that gives you something to point to, and like a portfolio, for lack of a better way of putting it.
More questions. Okay, crossing over.
Hi, thanks so much. I wanted to know if you all had any advice for from your specific platform experience for artists that cross genre lines, especially with their releases of music. Yeah.
On YouTube, I would say, I guess like there's a couple components to it. One is sort of like creatively how you're approaching like making your content. You know, the through line in all that music is you. So like kind of getting people invested in you and as an artist, and kind of like being able to make those hops kind of becomes easier when somebody kind of understands that that's what you do. And I do think visuals are a really nice way to tie things together. The second piece is, I guess, more tactical. In terms of like metadata, like I think titles and descriptions are kind of the most important places for putting sort of important keywords, more so than like your tags, which is I think different than Bandcamp. So one thing you might want to think about doing in your descriptions, and even maybe somewhere in the titles of your videos, is being like, this is I don't know what genre is you, but this is like a house banger, or this is like my more ambient project or whatever, and kind of including that so that there's some sort of tie-in on the keywords. And then content organization is really helpful too. So making playlists of the different types of content. And then at the end of, let's say it's your house playlist. So let's say if somebody finds one of those tracks, you can put like a little end card that's like, go check out more this type of music from me. Yeah. And then lastly, I would say probably collaborations are really helpful too, in terms of collaborating with artists that are in each of those lanes to kind of open up the door to that type of discovery. So
Yeah, for us, it's definitely the tags, and I would use single tags of all of the different genres that your music touches. So I would stay away from something like straight up psychedelic R&B. I would make psychedelic and R&B two different tags in there, because then you're going to be floating in across people who are just searching for psychedelic. And the good thing about Bandcamp is we have a lot of people who are like, I don't know what I want, but let me just click this tag and try to find a bunch of stuff. So that would be a recommendation. And one thing that I haven't shouted out yet is we did over the last year just launch public playlists on Bandcamp. And so if you have, your music and you want to put together like a little greatest hits that you can share on social media, or just your music and music like it, we've got it set up so that everybody can listen through the playlist 3 times and then they have to buy music from it. So that's another way that you can get out there.
Thanks.
Wait, just to add to that, you mentioned kind of like putting a more thorough description, or even in the title. We had some questions ahead of time about like SEO. How do you optimize for like search engines and with each of your platforms? Like, is it in the descriptions? Is it in the titles?
yeah. So for YouTube, I would say basically the title and description are the most important places. And like your for music videos, like titling is very straightforward. It's just like artist name, song name. I would definitely make sure you include what type of video it is. So if it's like a lyric video, performance video, whatever, like those types of things go in the title. And then for the description, like I wouldn't just like put a list of keywords. I would actually just like write like actually a 3-sentence of like, what is this? And be mindful as you're doing that to include any things that are sort of relevant from a keyword perspective. And then your tags can be a bit of a catch-all for things that maybe you didn't include. But like I would say, like, speaking of saturation, like tags are so saturated that it's not necessarily going to be the thing that makes or break your video. So I would really focus on title, description. And then the last thing I would say, which is sort of tied to SEO, but more so like how much click through you're going to actually get on your content. Your thumbnail is extremely important. So like making sure your thumbnail is like something that is like high contrast, bright, zoomed in, so that it looks good on like a smaller scale, not like busy. And like really honestly, like people's faces are the strongest thumbnails, like that are like, instead of like, I think some people like don't put text on your thumbnail, like you're already getting that across in the title. And like if I was looking on my phone, it just like makes it look like too much. So like I would say, yeah, like title, description, thumbnail are sort of the most important pieces on YouTube. And I think a lot of people think that their tags or their tags are like making or breaking their videos, and that's just like kind of not the case. It's really like, are people finding your video? If they find it, are they clicking it? If they click it, is it what they expected? So that's also like another important thing. Don't mislead people with your titles or descriptions, because if people click on the video and they're like, wait, this isn't what I expected it to be, then they're going to leave quickly. And that tells us that people maybe aren't interested in that video.
For us, it's similar. We have on every single album page and single page and everything, there's an album notes field. And we always tell artists, definitely fill that out, even if it's just a paragraph describing a little bit what the song sounds like or who you are, and putting in, words that give people an idea of what they're going to hear. So those album notes are huge and is another way that our pages are SEO optimized.
Hi. It's actually more just two things that I've picked up along the way in regards to what you were talking about building fan bases. But I just thought I should shout out the Bandcamp listening parties because
Those are awesome.
I had no idea about it, and it's effectively you schedule a listening party with a chat room the day before your album comes out, which A, makes people feel like they're in on something private. B, you have no idea who's going to come based on who you sold music to. Like we did it, and at the end, James Holden was like, "Hey, that was great." I was like, "Oh, you were in here." And we sold 50 copies of the vinyl, 20 tapes, 10 CDs, which is like actually quite a lot if you're only pressing. And then the other one was about Bandcamp Friday. Yeah, don't put up your new song, which you poured your heart into. But I think it's a really good way to renew interest in your back catalog, whether it's like doing a bundle. So like, hey, these are all the compilations we did, various artist compilations for £10, or here's everything on one of these labels for £20. And actually, like, they really work. And especially for people who are super prolific, like, don't expect people to dig through your back catalog. Curate a comp of the last 10 years of like your like forgotten gems. So yeah, sorry, no questions, just
No, that's awesome. And with the listening parties too, I'll just jump on to say those have been hugely successful. And we've got that featured listening parties in the homepage. And just to bring it all back to this, the editorial team goes through the back end and we handpick the ones that show up there, and it's purely based on tabbing it out. We don't look at how many people are already attending. We like check them out, and if it looks cool, we'll put it on the homepage. So if you're showing up in that spot, it's because we check it out and put it there too. But yeah, thanks for mentioning both those things.
I guess I'll also mention, just in case people aren't familiar, YouTube Premieres, which is basically the same functionality for watching a new video. So you can like schedule a video and then people can all hang out and chat and watch the video together. It probably makes the most sense once you have some audience to direct to it, obviously, but so somewhat similar where it gives you kind of like eventizes your release. So figure we haven't mentioned that this whole time. It is something that a lot of artists use. So
More questions? Okay, here we are, right here in the center.
Yeah, I'm curious if you can speak to any upcoming or new features that you're excited about coming to your platforms that are either artist facing or promotional features that people should be anticipating or expecting.
Yeah, so we just public playlists we just launched, and I touched on those briefly. Fans and artists can create public facing playlists, either of their own music or music that they bought and is in their collection that they want to share out. The other big one that we just launched is Bandcamp Clubs, and this is designed for folks who, and this is a pretty large part of our demographic, just don't have time to search for new music necessarily, but they know the style of music that they like. So we enlisted Jay Bennett, who's a longtime metal writer for Decibel, Jam Supernova, who's a UK club DJ, Tina Edwards, who's a BBC jazz DJ, and AJ Sagar, who's a longtime alt and indie music writer. You pay a monthly sub to this thing. They pick out the record that month that they think is the coolest and most important record that you need to hear. By being a member of this club, you get that record automatically in your Bandcamp collection. Then you also get exclusive access to the curator will interview that artist, and it's talking about the process of making the record, and only subscribers get that. I hopefully will move that to video interviews. Right now they're written, but it gives a window into the creation of this record that other places don't have. And then there's a members only listening party with the curator and the band where you all listen to the album together. You can talk to other people who are in the club. You can talk to the band. You can talk to the curator who'll ask more questions about the record. And again, it's designed to be like, I don't have a lot of time to listen to music. Okay, here's a great record. It's in my collection. I didn't have to do anything. And now I have these 3 other experiences that I can learn more about this and build more of a relationship. So that's the one thing that we just launched. And we're going to be launching a holiday guide soon, but everybody's going to be launching a holiday guide soon. So
I already mentioned collaborations, but that is like the one that artists have been super excited about. There's another feature. I guess I think I don't know what the official name is going to end up being, but we have talked about it publicly, so I can mention it. Called Stations, which I actually think is really cool. Where you can, you all may have seen before, like on YouTube, there's like these like say 24-hour live stream kinds of things that happen. Basically what it is you can take videos on your channel and you can kind of program a list of videos that will play together, and the viewing experience will feel like somebody's just watching a live stream with a chat. You can hang out. So if you're an artist, or if you have like a label or something like that, it's a really cool way to make like a station for yourself that people can just kind of tune into. And so like there's a lot of different use cases I could think of for it, but it's sort of like a programmed watching experience essentially that people can tune into on your channel. So I think that's really fun. We just released a feature where you can reply to comments with a voice note. I'm not a big voice note person, but I know a lot of people are. So that's fun. I just met with an artist last week who was already starting to use it and was super stoked about it. And then with shorts, we have these features called Remix, where you can basically green screen yourself, or like side by side yourself, or cut to videos on your channel. So if you wanted to provide commentary on a music video you put out or something, or do something funny or whatever, like it's also a cool way that you can sort of in a lightweight way make content. Lastly, just another shorts feature. There's a related video feature on shorts where you can link a short to a long form video on your channel. So perfect for promoting a music video you just dropped, or an interview you did, or something like that. Yeah, those are a few features.
Yeah, we had when one of the artists I was working with, we're uploading like 2-hour DJ set videos of 2-hour DJ sets, making shorts, chopping out 15 seconds of like a cool moment, and then in the related videos putting the link to the whole thing, and that drove a lot.
Yeah, exactly. It's again, it's like this is sort of the ecosystem that we're trying to get to, is this place where people find you on the short, then that takes them into the long form experience, then they become a fan, So like that's the goal. It's like, there's still obviously work to be done for that to work and to work for everybody, but like that is the ultimate goal of the ecosystem.
And one thing I haven't mentioned is if you don't follow us on Instagram, last year we started doing original video content over there, and it's a combination of the Bandcamp Daily scene reports that everybody loves. We've turned into short form videos, which is another way for people to discover things. And then this year we just now launched a new recurring feature that we're excited about. It's called A Day in the Life. Bandcamp's all about fans connecting directly with artists. Sometimes fans don't know what 24 hours in the life of an artist looks like. So we, have picked artists. So far, we've done one with Bambara, and we've got one with Kelly Moran coming up, and one with Fiery Furnaces and Lorraine coming up. We asked them, just take your phone and start out 5:45. Here's what I'm doing. I just woke up. Over the course of a day, it usually culminates in a show. We had the band Upchuck from Georgia played a Halloween show. So they're going to be all in costume playing this Halloween show. And so that's another way to discover cool stuff. And we're expanding on some of those video offerings in the next year with unboxing and some of the cool merch and things that are on Bandcamp. So shout out our very small 2-person Instagram team, and definitely give it a follow if you don't already.
More questions from anyone? Let's do it.
So I guess with YouTube and Bandcamp, a lot of it is trying to build like a global like internet audience and just, get more streaming numbers. Are there ways, do you see people like using those platforms to sort of foster local communities within their city, to sort of, people who aren't concerned about, just getting more followers, but just building like local communities? I know Bandcamp has like, you can search by city, so you can kind of really narrow that down. You see people in other cities like doing anything interesting to sort of build small communities that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of local outlets in like I think most cities that have some presence on YouTube. So I think like, I guess the most obvious example is something like the Law Radio, right? Where it is very much like a local New York staple, but it allows them to reach sort of a broader audience. And sorry, I keep coming back to community radio, but I love community radio. I think it's like the coolest thing, and a really important thing. So I think like that example specifically, like there's a lot of those in different cities. So like I think using it as a way, again, like similarly to what we were saying earlier, but using it as a way to catalog your scene. And it doesn't matter if your videos are getting 1 million views or 100 views. It's like, it's you building an archive of what you're doing in your local scene and giving people a way to find it. Like I personally I like stalk the New York dance music scene because it's like so cool. So like I like having those ways of doing that. Like I have a friend who runs this thing called Karachi Community Radio. He's from Pakistan, now based in New York. And like his whole thing was showcasing the Karachi scene. And so like, I think it is a really valuable way to do that. And it's not about, and this is like sort of what I was saying earlier when I was talking about building a portfolio. Like it's not necessarily about going viral or something like that. It's about like, this should be documented, and it's a place that you can do that, and you can organize it, and you can highlight different artists from the scene, like things like that. So definitely a great way to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you'd kind of mentioned at the beginning, with Bandcamp, one of the things we hear all the time is that touring bands, if they're going to be playing in New York and they need to find a local opener, will definitely months in advance of the tour just sort by location and whatever genre they are and try to find a band that way to open the show. So yeah.
Additional questions?
There's one question that came in from someone who wasn't able to be here today. Was about like using the data to sort of inform, how to kind of reach their fans or optimize like their releases. I think with YouTube, there's a robust, a lot. Yeah, there's a ton of data that you can get on your videos and whatever. On Bandcamp, is there data? Like, how can you?
There is data. I wish it was more robust, to be totally honest. You can see the number of plays, streams, followers. You can see if someone's written about you somewhere else that's not on Bandcamp. We tell you where your traffic's coming from. On the Bandcamp for Artist app, I think we have a little bit more robust data. You can definitely see, spikes in certain days when you've released things or not released things or where things are coming from, but definitely don't. I wish our tools were more refined. I think that's a sentiment across Bandcamp.
Do people ever get lost in the YouTube data? Like,
yeah, everybody does. We do sometimes too. I guess I can just shout out some of the things I would look at the most. I would also give another shout for the YouTube for Artists site, because we actually have a whole super detailed resource about artist analytics, and also another shout for official artist channels, because that's what gives you access to artist analytics. And the reason that artist analytics are better than just your channel analytics is that they actually look at song level data. So you can see if the performance of a song in whatever iterations it exists, meaning that would be, let's say you have 2 or 3 videos on your channel that feature the song. Let's say a fan uploaded the song somewhere else on YouTube. It kind of aggregates those all, so you can actually see how many views a song has across the platform. The things that I think are most interesting to look at when you're talking about music videos would be checking your click-through rates. So that will tell you if your thumbnail is doing a good job. There's actually a feature where you can A/B test thumbnails too. So if you want to like see, oh, is this one better? Is that one better? And they'll run a test for a set amount of time, and it'll kind of tell you that. So that gives you a sense of like if people are clicking on the content. Then once people have clicked on the content, there's something called audience retention in there that's really helpful. That literally shows you people's engagement with the video like over the timeline of the video. So I see this a lot with like artists that do music videos with like a crazy long intro, where like people like just drop off and they're not actually necessarily getting to the video itself. Or maybe there's like something that happens in the video. Like you might actually like, it's interesting to see, because you might notice that there's specific drop off points in a video, and you're like, okay, that's good to know, just like for future reference. Doesn't mean it should be the entirety of your creative decision making, but just like one thing to think about. I think the traffic sources is super interesting. that tells you how people are finding your content. You can get as granular, seeing like specific videos that are being suggested before yours. That can be really interesting. You can see if there's like a user playlist where the traffic's coming from. Sometimes you're just showing up on the homepage for a lot of people. So I think that's a helpful metric to look at. And then on the short side, you can also see the number of creates for any given song. So if people are using your song in their short form content, also really helpful thing to track. 'Cause sometimes you'll maybe notice some cool content from a fan, or you'll just notice like, oh wow, like 100 people have made shorts with my song in it. And there might be something to that to like dig like further into. So I think that covers like the basics.
I have two more questions as well, if everyone's okay. The first one's for you, Ash. Similar to what I first asked Joe, is there a good like practice that artists should have of knowing, okay, I want to release this video on this day, but when should I upload it to YouTube and make sure like the algorithm can digest it first?
Yeah. So, to be honest, like exact upload times aren't super important because YouTube is kind of, it's not as instant of a platform as like Instagram is, for example, where I think like your upload time really does matter because it's like, are people going to see it in their feed? Whereas like with YouTube, like you upload it and people will kind of see it when they see it. And like there's enough of a like sort of time window where there's a good chance that people, if they want to see it, will get a chance to like it within that time. That's not to say you shouldn't be releasing videos, in the middle of the night for your audience or any of those sort of more obvious things. There is actually something within your analytics as well that tells you when your viewers are online the most. So in the audience section of the analytics, there's a section that says like when your audience is online, and you can actually see by day and time. So you could strategize around that. There isn't any, in terms of upload versus like making public or premiering, there isn't any specific guidance there. Like you can upload it right before you drop it, or you can upload it a week in advance and then make it public. There shouldn't be any like drawback to one approach or the other. It's really when it goes public that it kind of kicks off the search and discovery portion, because it's basically seeing how people are reacting to the video and then deciding what to do with it from there.
Okay, cool. For the other streaming service, you should definitely upload your music long before you're actually going to release it and ask Ben about that specifics afterwards. And then the other question I have for you, Joe, is like, I feel like Bandcamp, there's kind of a way where you can get like too big to be on Bandcamp, right? And so I'm wondering if there's an artist who wants to sign not with an independent label or goes to a major label, are there ways that they can still kind of like interact with their Bandcamp fans, even though their stuff's coming out elsewhere, and just thinking about that like growth plan for artists?
Yeah, it's a great question. So two things to that. One of the things we came up with, editorially speaking, is a feature called Big Ups. And it's for an artist who gets to that level, and we know that they come up on Bandcamp and we still want to feature them in some way. So it's giving them a platform to shout out artists who they like, who are up and coming. So it still kind of goes back to that. So we're featuring Wilco on the homepage, Wilco shouting out 7 or 8 tiny bands. In the case of someone who signs to a major, there's 2 different things. So one, that Boy Genius record came out on Universal, and Phoebe and Julian and Lucy all came up through Bandcamp. They had got Universal to do a carve out where they could still release that record on Bandcamp, because that's where their entire fan base was, and it made good economic sense for Universal to do that. Even if not, though, we don't shut down your page just because you signed to a major. If the majors buy up your old records or whatever, that's fine. But like all those messaging features are still there, and you're still welcome to use the community that way to let them know that you're touring. Let them know, hey, I have a new album out on Island, and here's the places where I'd prefer that you get it. Here's to my official store, because I can't put the record on Bandcamp anymore. And here's my tour dates. So there are still ways to interact with the community. A lot of it does come down to the artist being able to have that conversation with the major and saying, hey, can I like sell some shirts to my Bandcamp community? I would say when you show them the numbers, usually they're pretty persuaded. For various reasons, they might not be able to let you to put the record up there. I will say that I'm just gonna say it. We definitely have had over the last 10, 12 years on and off conversations with the majors and what that would look like if we started having majors on Bandcamp. Um, the big thing is like no favored nations treatment for larger labels. Bandcamp just stays Bandcamp, and no priority releases. They just have to act like any other label. But it's a push and pull, and either we're not sure or they're not sure, and so yeah, I don't think it's coming anytime soon. But we've had convos on what that would look like. Do we just take a certain part of the catalog that makes sense for Bandcamp? Like Boy Genius would be a good example of it. That was on a major label, but obviously I think you can see a reason why it would also be on Bandcamp. So those are the back and forths. Like I said, it's not, they're like idle plates spinning in the background. In the meantime, if you do get up to the next level, I mean, first, that's awesome. And then second, your entire Bandcamp page stays as it is, and you can continue to interact with people that way.
Great. What another? Is it a question? Is it a comment? We'll find out.
Oh man, I'm sorry. I just like these are things I would be remiss not to mention, but really, especially for people who are DJs or releasing dance music, there's obviously been a like long lineage of sending out your track to DJs before it's out, like as a download. But like relying on DJs to then shout you out or do anything after that is like a fool's errand. So using Bandcamp codes, the promo codes, you can generate 100 Bandcamp codes, and you can just like basically send them to people, and it gets put in their collection so that by the time the release comes out, it's already like got like, a lot of little floating heads, and that just generates more interest in it. And also like maybe even like saying to fans, okay, the first 10 people to reply to this message on Bandcamp get a Bandcamp code, makes them feel like they're in on something, which they are. Not to be like, I'm not like, pulling the wool over their eyes, but yeah, that was a big one for me over the last 2 years, where it's like, well, the DJs who probably wouldn't pay anyway, you might as well get some mileage out of them putting it into their collection.
Yeah, I mean, that's perfect. And there's a label that I follow called Realm and Ritual, and they do dungeon synth and black metal. And every Friday morning at a certain time, they will send out a Bandcamp message to their fans, and it's a whole list of codes, and it's like, go for it. And honestly, by like 11 o'clock New York time, I'm like out of luck. Like all the codes have already been used, but that's just a testament to like exactly what you're saying, like how well they work and how much people are excited to have them in their collection.
Ooh, another question.
Okay, I'm going to start with an apology first, because this is not editorial related, but maybe you can give us a peek behind on something through the lens of a DJ, and we all love Bandcamp. It can be a frustrating user experience for discovery and digging and listening and downloading. And is there any insight you can give to like how the site is built, obstacles that are insurmountable that we should all be aware of and keep in mind when we're like banging on the desk? Or I know like I hate Beatport as a company and what they are, but like they have an elegant like way of digging through back catalogs and such, and sometimes I like to use their bandwidth and do my digging over there and then buy it on Bandcamp instead. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything you can say? And it's like, I'm not looking for like, just, yeah.
I'm sorry. No, I get it. I'm thinking of how to phrase it. I know I'm just trying to figure out how to get there. Revamping the site and the way the site works has been a floating project for a while. And unfortunately, yeah, it is. Is there a specific kind of aspect to we used to have a best dance singles column, and it ended up not not really helping the artist in any kind of meaningful way, and it was the writer. I don't know how being recorded. Never mind.
I've always kind of liked how hard it is to find music on Bandcamp.
We hear that. I feel like friction is part of it.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just like working hard for some reason. I'm like, this is like real. Like it's like I almost feel like I'm like crate digging because it's like it's like a charm of the experience. But I also understand that like when you're doing it at a like scaled level and you're trying to like download a bunch of music for a set or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had that experience too, where it gets really clunky. But
Yeah, is the music like not all fully hosted by Bandcamp? Is it like when you buy? Because I know the files come up one by one, like based on labels.
but
and
multiple purchases, multiple purchases, and stuff.
That's got to do with because it's a direct support thing. So if I buy a single from Alien Tape and then one from Planet Mu and one from, I don't know, pick another label, the way that it's set, we're working on bulk purchasing, but because of the way it's done right now and the money goes directly to those individual artists, we process the Alien Tape first and then get the money to their account. Then we process the Planet Moon one first and get that money to their account. So we are working on bulk purchasing. We moved to Stripe recently, which is actually going to help with that in a big way. That was one of the reasons why we did it. We are still supporting PayPal, but Stripe just offers us so much more stuff. So yeah, the bulk purchasing is something that we're going to be moving towards. But yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you, but I don't. I appreciate you asking for sure. It's stuff I can take back to them. So yeah. What's that?
Will it extend to bulk downloading?
Yeah. It's all part of the same. It's all part of the same thing.
And another.
Just a really quick question about the search feature. Is there any, sorry, I know this isn't your wheelhouse, but like we're all over here just thinking.
No.
Just
Please,
spinning.
yeah. I'll be honest.
I mean, just something like being able to sort the searches.
Yeah, you
Like
can.
on a date or by,
I know. You can filter it out by artist, album, or like if you're looking for a certain label that's called, I keep going to Alien Tape because it's one of my favorite labels. If you're looking for that and not like the artist call that, you can filter that. But yeah, not sorting by date. That gets us when we're putting together Bandcamp Daily features. And I'm trying to find like this artist who has got a passing mention in a piece. I'm like, is this the one? And is this their newest album? Or do they have another page somewhere else that I don't know about? And so sadly, the answer is no, but it is a known thing.
Got it. Thank you. And sorry, since we're going up, this is great opportunity just to ask a couple more questions. The bulk purchase, would that mitigate the issue where my credit card company puts my card on lock and calls me?
Yes. Every week. First Bandcamp Friday, that was a disaster across the board that we didn't anticipate. It happened to me. Yes, it will, because it will just show up as one purchase to Bandcamp, but then the money gets routed to the right people.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? Oh, and there. You always got to just wait till the end,
This is a question about Bandcamp as an artist. If you have a bunch of, I guess, releases uploaded to different label pages on Bandcamp, is there a functionality that exists as an artist to just not like have to upload them and like cut in on the label's sales, but just mirror them in like a centralized location as an artist?
Yes. I'm going to start to answer your question, but if it turns out to not be what you're asking, then just let me know. There is a way for you to have a centralized artist page. It requires, unfortunately, all of your labels to kind of be on board with it. So you basically send an invitation to them to join your label page, and then just your specific release for that label will show up on your page as well as showing up on their page. As far as routing funds specifically to you, I think that was the second part of what you asked.
Oh, no, it was just like so that they continue to sell.
Yeah. There's an invite feature where you send an invite to them. And now the problem that we've had across the board is the labels don't accept the invite, and then everybody gets confused, and it's still the same situation. It's not the most elegant way to do it, but you invite them, and then we have artists all over the place who have releases on like 9 different labels, and you can just go to their artist page. And I've noticed it when I click on the artist page and then I go to a certain release, one will say like Sacred Bones and the other one will be like Capture Tracks or something. So it's just not super elegant. You should be able to find it in the artist FAQ, which I think is just bandcamp.com/artist. We have a whole help section. It should be in there, but that's how you do it.
Would you have to create a new like paid artist account to do that? Because I have a.
No, not if you have one already.
Well, thank you.
We did that for my friend. You guys know Old Table? Check out Old Table. He's amazing. But he's got a bunch of releases he's just a weirdo. And so he's got 9 million releases all over the place. We set him up with it. And so he did that.
Final questions? Passing it back to Ben, if not. Okay, Ben,
Cool.
close us out.
All right, thanks everyone. So just final reminders, next week, releasing music on tight budgets, same time here. And then on Friday night is the Ableton sessions. So yeah, I mean those. And at Hot Mass tonight. Okay, well, thank you both so much. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.